just to give you a background on who I am. My name's Paul. I'm e-learning manager at Old Park Primary School, which is in Wednesbury in the West Midlands. If you've ever drove up the M6 and gone past the IKEA and the RAC, that's us, right around the corner. A lot of our parents actually work at the IKEA. Before working in primary, I worked in high school, so I've done 18 months up to 18 years old. So I've done a breadth of ages, and they all behave roughly the same as each other. So this is how I've successfully supported school with Google for Education. I'm probably going to teach a few of you to suck eggs here. You sit there and go, yeah, we know all this, but this is how I've gone through it. And to be honest, it's not the technical support that is the key to this. So, like I say, the focus I've found has had to be on adoption, not deployment. And what I mean by that is deployment's technical issue. It's our issue. Teachers don't care about the deployment side of things. They just want to teach. So what I've found, and this is through rolling out many different systems in the past that haven't necessarily been as successful as we have been with Google, is that if I talk about deployment, my teachers just switch directly off. So most of the time, I just want them to get the information about the adoption. First thing I did when I was rolling out the Google Chromebooks and Google Classroom and the G Suite tools was to ask them for feedback. Now this is a nice, quick, easy way of getting your first win with Google Forms, and I'll go into quick wins later as well. Get a Google form going. It doesn't have to be set up so they log in. You could do it almost as an anonymous form and ask your staff about their needs and their wishes, because historically, as a tech myself, we have had in the past where we just give them the system and expect them to go and use it. What I've found has worked a lot better for me is to go out and ask them for their needs and wishes. Once you've got your G Suite set up, get your Google Forms set up, get them to fill in the details on there, and you'll have all your feedback in a spreadsheet, nice and clean. You'll be able to see what people's desires and wishes are from the systems that you're going to provide. And then from that, you can adapt your plans. Some staff might say, well, we only want a computer to get onto the network. Some might say, well, we've used this VLE, we've used Moodle, or we've used another, I'm trying to think of a few of the other ones that are out there. Frog. But this has been a problem, that's been a problem, how do we get through these issues? So you can then adapt your plans from those Google Forms, and like I say, that first Google Form you get out, great feedback for yourselves, great way of introducing Google without necessarily introducing the full system yet. Now this is a key one. I've done a lot of pie in the sky thinking with them before, and it's a mistake. What I've found with my staff, if I tell them my plan for 3 years down the line, it overwhelms them. It scares them. So what I normally do is I try and give them the immediate compelling vision and communicate that to them. And they do get worried if you give them too much information. So let them know what you're planning in the first year. Don't give them a 3-year plan, because that would just put them off. And don't bite off more than the school can chew. And what I mean by that is it is great to say, right, in 12 months we'll have the whole school running on Google. If it's not a realistic prospect based on your full feedback of their needs and wishes, take more time. It's better, and I found it's better in my experience, to make sure that you get it right with a small group and then roll it out, than try and roll it to everybody and flounder. And I've done that with a couple of VLEs back, especially when the government made them mandatory requirements, where you roll the whole thing out, everyone's very excited, and then nobody uses it. So what I'm now doing is rolling it to just 2-year groups. Then I'm introducing a third a little bit further down the line, to make sure that we get it in correctly, stage by stage. And lead by example. And what I mean by that is again, like I've said here, with Google Forms, ask them for feedback on their needs and wishes. When you send an email with an attachment on, don't attach it as an email attachment, attach it from Google Drive. All those little things that you will expect them to do in the future, start doing immediately in order to get them to start using the system. If you're attaching a PDF, attach the Google Drive link. They can open it up straight away. They haven't even got to open Adobe Acrobat Reader or any of the alternatives that are out there. It'll just open in the browser. And get your senior leaders on board. Definitely. If your senior leaders aren't using it as a regular occurrence, your staff are just not going to get them use it. There we go. Use it as a regular occurrence. Train. Now, I don't know about your schools, but in my school, there has been a little bit of a guilty moment where we go, wow, they use Windows at home. Well, if they're using Windows at home, they know how to use Windows. We haven't got to train them on using Windows. Well, it's not entirely true that you don't have to train them on using Windows. But when you're bringing in new platforms, you definitely need to be looking at the training. And that's not just from the teacher aspect, that's all of your staff, including yourselves. Any platform will fail unless your staff are well prepared, and that's yourselves and everybody else. Train everybody that you want to start using it before the rollout. And you'll start, I'm not talking about technology and the hardware side of things at the moment, you'll see why. But don't train them, all your staff, not just your teaching staff, especially your teaching support staff. I find that they traditionally get overlooked. In the primary sector in particular, I can't speak for FE or high schools at the moment, but I'm assuming it will be very similar. So make sure your teaching support staff are trained, because at minimum then you've got 2 people in any classroom at minimum who have got experience and expertise on the system. Otherwise, one on their own, I generally find they start panicking and floundering and then just don't get the equipment out. But don't train them too early. If you train them 4, 5, 6 months before you get your equipment in, they're not going to remember any of that. And I've done that again. I'm speaking from experience of failing on other systems before. If you train them way too early, they're not going to remember it. So a few weeks before you're bringing in your systems, get them trained. And again, that's something Vitalize can do for you. Customise your training. And what I mean by that is, if you know that you've got a couple of teachers at school who already use G Suite at home, and they use Gmail, they use Google Docs, Google Slides, you don't need to give them that particular part of the training necessarily if they already know how to use those tools. And that's where that Google feedback form comes in. Meanwhile, you might have somebody who's terrified of computers, but you want them to use them on a regular basis, so you're going to have to do all the very basic training all the way through Gmail. I'm trying to think of all the other tools at the moment, Google Sites, etc. You're going to want to give them that training. Start with some basics when it comes to the training. Things that they know, or things that they should know but not necessarily know the Google equivalent of. You do things like get your staff using Google Classroom, but as a pupil, so they can see what the experience will be from their side, the pupil side. Because that's something I've been guilty of before, is giving them all the training on how it's going to work from a teaching aspect or a learning aspect, but not necessarily what the pupil's going to see and their day-to-day use. Get them using Calendar and Gmail. What I found was a great way of getting people to use G Suite on a regular basis was getting our resources booking resources on the calendar. Now, again, I can't speak for other schools, but our schools still seem to be very fond of paper diaries. Slowly but surely trying to wean them off. Part of that is they haven't got enough equipment, well, traditionally they haven't had enough equipment to be able to use electronic diaries. But get them using the calendar, the Gmail, all the basic things they would use day to day, but in your school aspect. And keep it continuous and specialised. And what I mean by that is do some twilight sessions, staff meetings, small group training. Find where people need the training constantly. Keep a feedback loop between yourselves and your staff as to where they're struggling, where they're finding things are good. If you've got different departments within a school, and I know that doesn't apply to primary as such, but if you know certain people are doing very well at some things, get them to train each other and show each other how to do it. There we go. Find your quick wins. This is what I was saying before. Show them tests that mark themselves with Google Forms. Because at the point that they can do that, they realise they haven't got to go through 30 tests every single time. They automatically tick themselves and mark themselves. Get them to push URLs out using the share to classroom option. As soon as they've signed up to a classroom, you can then push web addresses and data out, which some tools already have in place, but it's built in essentially with Google. Not with some other tools where you have to then write the URL all the way across the top of a page and then children don't type it in properly, etc. Get them to use Google Cast for Education. Google Cast for Education is basically a school's version of Chromecast, but it's a free tool for schools. You install it onto a Chrome device which is connected to a screen, and then you can beam any device within your classroom up to the main screen. So it's a good way of getting them, quick win, quick tool for them to beam it across. Get them sharing documents between staff members, just so they have the experience of being able to edit together, watching their colleagues edit as they're editing. No more memory sticks. Now, I don't know if you're aware of the GDPR laws that are coming in soon, but the Data Protection Act is out, and the GDPR, which I believe is the General Data Protection Regulation, is coming in. It's an EU-wide regulation, and it is much, much, much stricter in regards to what you can and can't do with data. If your staff have got unencrypted memory sticks and are running around with them with children's data on, you are going to be in a lot of trouble. If you're using Google, it's inherently secure. It's all HTTPS secure, HTTPS transferred. Memory sticks aren't inherently secure. If you drop that memory stick with 500 pupils' names on, you've got 500 individual data protection breaches sitting right there for you to have to report within a 72-hour window to the Information Commissioner, which, instead of a £500,000 fine from May next year, will move up to a maximum of €20 million, or 4% of your turnover, whichever is the largest. So basically €20 million to most schools. You can't afford to have an issue with staff who've got data on pupils on an unencrypted memory stick anymore. You really cannot afford to. So, no more memory sticks. And when Jem earlier said it's an unlimited space, it really is unlimited. Theoretically, the limit is 2 petabytes. You don't need me telling you what that mathematically works out at, other than at my school it's the equivalent of 250,000 memory sticks each. Now I know we get a lot of those at events like this where you get a free memory stick, but no one wants 250,000 of them hanging off a keyring.